Next up, we have What's Your Brand Message? And this is being presented by Dan Rhoton, who is the Executive Director for Hopeworks. So Dan, come on up.
Thank you so much.
Oh, yes, props.
Oh, I do props.
Are we going to play beer pong?
Oh, maybe later. That's the post-conference.
From that movie.
Beer pong aside, right? Brand messaging, so important, right? You have to define your audience. You have to think about key images. You have to think about credible messengers. You have to really plan out your campaign. You have to really think and scheme about what your brand message is. Before I go any further, just a quick reflection. And you don't have to raise your hand, but I'm just curious, how many folks are thinking about anything that I said, and how many folks are wondering what I'm doing with the cups next? My name is Dan Rhoton. I'm CEO of Hopeworks Canada. And if I do nothing else today, I hope that this exercise shows you no one cares what you say when they are watching what you do. And if you don't believe me, you know the cups are there, but you have no idea what I just said about brand messaging. And it was good stuff right from the internet. I mean, I copied it. Just so you know my credentials, at Hopeworks, we have a little bit of experience working with young adults 17 to 27. This is a group that folks love to talk about. This is a group that what they do is a little bit different. When you talk about young adults 17 to 27, they don't show up, they're returning citizens, they're experiencing homelessness, they don't like to work. Does this sound familiar? That's what people say. Let me tell you what the young adults at Hopeworks do. They walk in typically making less than $400 a year. They're not working, that's true. When they walk out of Hopeworks, they're making on average over $43,000 per year. And these young folks who don't want to work, they had almost 90% 12-month retention rate. These young adults that everyone's happy to talk about how there's too many barriers, they come in every day. We train them in front-end web development, geographic information systems, digital mapping, high-demand technologies. We use a trauma-informed approach to help them get socially, emotionally, professionally ready. But it's not what they learn, it's what they do. By the time they're done training with us, they have the skills, they have no experience. So we hire them first. Hopeworks runs a full web development company. We also do GIS and data analytics for Fortune 1000 infrastructure companies. Our young adults train with us, yes, but then they work for us. They get a living wage, they deliver real projects, and then we pipeline them right into companies. I say that to brag a little bit, for real, for sure. But also, we understand the gap at Hopeworks between what people say and what they do. And when you're thinking about brand messaging for your nonprofit, it's not about a social media post. It's not about ending a Facebook post with a question. It's not about having a good picture. The first step we found is to make sure the lived experience of your clients and your partners matches your mission. As just one slightly embarrassing example, I'll tell you about this happened about last year. I was at Hopeworks and we're humming, we're doing our thing, and one of our young men came to me. He had been there for about 2 months. He was just really succeeding, really moving into success. Hey, Dan, can I talk to you for a minute? Of course, right? Happy to. Sit down. He's like, I wanted to tell you about my experience at Hopeworks. And I don't know about you guys, but he was succeeding, so I was kind of getting ready for a good day, right? Yeah, tell me about your experience. That's not what happened next. He said, Dan, I had to tell you, when I first came to Hopeworks, I was pretty sure you guys were a scam. Okay, bad day, right? Tell me more. Well, listen, I've been trying to get my life turned on. He had overcome a ton of obstacles, right? He'd been trying, he said, you guys sound like everybody else, right? Come here, we'll get you a job. We care about you, right? We're different, right? He said, I looked at your flyers. You said the same thing as 4 other programs that had kicked me out. I looked at your website. It had the same pictures every other program did. Behind the scenes, I'm looking, I'm like, yeah, we kind of do. And real talk, Dan, the recruitment folks came out. We have great recruitment folks, but they basically said the same thing every other program that had screwed me had said, right? I was hurting a little bit at this moment and making some mental notes to look at our website. But then finally I was like, okay, thank you, first of all, for that feedback. I have to ask, you did come. Like, what was it? What are we doing right? And he said, well, the reason I came was that you got my cousin a job making 50 grand. And I grew up with that dude. If you can get him a job. So that's, I think, the first lesson, right, about brand messaging is when your website can look good, your promotional materials can look great. When someone calls your office, do they get a call back? And if they do, how long does it take? When a young adult walks in, do they get greeted or are they processed? Right? When a community partner reaches out for help, are you exhausted, overwhelmed, and stressed and too busy? Or are you excited because you have the best job in the world? That experience does more about your brand message than any website ever could. And that young man taught me that. If I'm doing my job and I'm convincing you that what you do is more important than what you say, then the second thing that's really important is what you sell. Now, of course, everyone's in here is like, Dan, we went into nonprofit to not sell stuff. We don't make screwdrivers, right? We're nonprofit, right? Well, but that's it. Like, what I would say is, actually, we are selling hard every day. But depending on what you sell, it depends on what your brand message is. So here's the thing. I'll use Hopeworks as an example. Hopeworks is a machine. You know what it is? It's like a factory. Hopeworks in the middle. Here, there's inputs and outputs, right? Standard factory. We're no different. You know what goes in? Ambition. We take the ambition of young adults who want to do something different, who have never seen anything different. We take that ambition. That's one input. You know the other input? Success. And I want to be clear, this is not some like young people can succeed. There are people in this world that have had huge financial and personal and intellectual success. They've sold 1 million screwdrivers. They got dollars. And it feels kind of meaningless. There are folks that have every degree in the world. They have every certification. They are incredibly smart. And they're wondering what they're going to do with it, right? What Hopeworks does is we take that ambition and we take that success that folks have, that success that feels empty, money, smarts. We put it into Hopeworks, we crank it out, and we turn that success and that ambition, we combine them together into significance. If you have success, if you have ambition, Hopeworks can make that into significance. We can change lives with what you're given. That's important because it depends on what you sell from your factory. I'll give you an example just as another story. So Hopeworks, we place folks in jobs, right? So it's really important that we get good employers. That's kind of the whole thing. Big part of my job is convincing folks to hire our young adults who you can imagine don't look like traditional candidates. So you can imagine my surprise, my excitement, when out of the blue, I got a call, hey, I wanted to talk to you because I wanted to hire a lot of your young adults. I was excited, but like the guy in the first story, I was pretty sure it was a scam. But hey, I keep talking, right? I started asking about wages. It's pretty good. Work conditions. Sometimes folks call organizations that serve brown and black young adults and think they can pay them less or put them in bad conditions, so I'm always screening for that. Now, this digital marketing is pretty good. This sounded really good, right? This guy seems pretty decent, right? They have an employee resource group. It sounds really okay. Still kind of feels like a scam because we don't really get inbound calls like that. So finally, I asked him, I said, listen, I am super excited to be talking to you. This is thrilling. This is great. This is thrilling, but I just got to ask you, like, why are you calling us? I haven't solicited you. I didn't meet you anywhere, right? And you seem like from the jump that you want to hire our folks. Why? I was trying not to blow the sale, but I had to know. And what he said was really important. He said, I run a digital services company. I was like, well, I know. I just spent the last few minutes screening to make sure you weren't a scammer. He's like, and I know I want to hire your young adults because you guys beat me on my last 3 contracts. Oh, yeah, I was going home singing that day. But here's the point. That's when it gets to what you're selling, right? Because what Hopeworks is selling is what our young adults do. And what our young adults do is they build websites, they do digital mapping, they do digital products, and I will say, as my friend will tell you, as good, if not better, than anybody in the business. That's what we're selling. We're selling the back end of the factory. That's what we're putting out. And what I want to challenge you is, when you're wondering what you're selling, are you selling the back end, what's coming out? Or are you selling the inputs? Are you selling the front end? So what do you need to get there, right? Well, you need ambition, for sure. You also need money. When your organization is thinking about its brand message, are you announcing grants? Are you talking about big donors? Great. So is everybody else. Everybody has that input. When your organization is talking about what's coming in, what you do, are you talking about adversity? Are you talking about poverty? Are you talking about homelessness? Are you talking about that? Those are all important, and those are things that impact our work, 100%. So is everybody else. I wish it was different, but the fact is every single organization in this country is dealing with returning citizens, homelessness, the incredible adverse impacts of trauma, ACEs, and poverty. We got to talk about it. But is that what your organization's selling? If you believe that hopefully I'm doing my job here, that what you do for your brand message is more important than what you say, then you got to talk about what you're doing about those things. And not just one good example, right? I told you those numbers at 43,000. Hopeworks on track this year to place 125 young adults into living wage jobs at 43,000. Do the quick math, that's almost $5 million in additional wages. Yeah, right, I tell that to my goldfish. I feel great about it. But the fact is, that's important, right? Because what we know is, if you're selling what you do, you're not just going to say we did this once. You're going to say we did it 100 times. If you're selling the inputs, you're going to talk about poverty and how bad it is, and you're going to say, here's one inspirational example. Love it. It takes one person to tell a good story. It takes a machine to end poverty. So if I've done my job, and here's what we're thinking about today. If I've done my job, when you're thinking about brand message, sure, I hope you have a great website. I hope you have great images. But number one, do is more important than what you say. And that means that if your clients, whether they're young adults or senior citizens, if your clients' lived experience doesn't match your mission, if they are not greeted, if they're not welcomed, if they are not getting what you promised them, if, as that young man said, if you are actually a scam or feel like it sometimes, fix that before you worry about your website. Number two, once that's done, once you're actually doing what you say, the second phase is watch what you're selling. When you sell the inputs, right, it's important to have those conversations, but when you sell the inputs, ambition, poverty, adversity, trauma, you're telling an important story, but it is the same story every other organization is telling. When you go to a restaurant, you don't go there for the bread. You go there for the sandwich, right? And so when you tell that story, when you're talking about it, make sure that you are selling your product, not the ingredients. When you're talking about all the money you got, when you're talking about all the problems that are out there, you got to have that conversation. But that can't be the last thing you say. Otherwise, your brand identity is yet another nonprofit that can't solve the problem. So again, key point, I hope if I did my job, you understand, like folks will pay attention to what you do long before what you say. And just as a final proof, I've been talking for almost exactly 15 minutes. I feel confident there's at least 1 or 2 or 10 folks in the audience that are wondering what I'm going to do with those cuffs. My name is Dan Rhoton. I'm CEO of Hopeworks. Thank you so much, everybody.